Hi everyone, Tim Brown. Welcome back to My Apple Podcast, the podcast that makes a personal connection to everything Apple. For this episode, I want to feature another iPad application. It's called Tayasui Sketches. I've been wanting to feature this application for some time, but for some reason, I don't know, couldn't get around to it. And now they came out with some pretty cool updates, so it's actually a perfect time to review it. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and open Tayasui Sketches. This is what you're greeted with when you first open it. It seems to have opened a previous sketch. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this so that I can show you all the basic features from the start. So here's the basic menu that you get, or basic look that you get when you begin a new project. And before we actually begin, I'm just going to show you what's at your disposal. And the main thing is when you click on the question mark in the top left, you can actually learn everything you need to know about Sketches. It's called Sketches Help for obvious reasons. The first version used to go from left to right, and now you scroll downwards to view all the options. And because this is a new update, there are a lot of new things here to see, such as dynamic eraser, which wasn't there before, if I'm correct. I don't think it was there. And you can just browse through and learn everything you need to know about Tayasui Sketches. I'm going to show you, though, how all this stuff works. Now, I'm at a new project. I have no drawings in my library. And when you begin a new project, you'll see a little settings icon in the bottom right. You're going to click on that to begin. Before I do that, I want to go ahead and at least click on the eye icon as well. And this is where you access your preferences if you buy the Pro mode, and I encourage you to do so because you get access to all the different brush features and so forth. That'll be on. You can display, undo, redo. And that basically will put arrows in the top right and bottom right corners that you can tap on to undo anything. There are also some shortcuts that are mentioned in the help menu that I'm going to show you as well. If you want to use the touch gestures to undo and redo, you need to turn display, undo, redo off. And that's actually what I'm going to do right now because I want to demonstrate how that's done with the gestures. And UI sounds, the app makes different types of sounds as you move from one point in the app to another. And there's a color eyedropper tool that gives you some extra flexibility in terms of matching colors that you already have on your canvas. And a new feature that they also added is you can actually browse sketches by other users in this mode. And there's a link to the website at the top right if you want that option. Let's begin a new project. I'm going to click on the settings icon. And this is something that's new and I'm very excited about. You can choose a no grain, fine grain, watercolor canvas kind of background, or you can choose some of the pre-existing colors and or choose a palette of colors by clicking on the icon in the bottom right. I'm going to try something different though because I like the option of being able to import a photo from my library, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to my camera roll and I'm going to find a nice background that I think would look really cool for this project, something that looks something like wallpaper. And I'm going to go ahead and add that, and then I'm just going to draw on top of it. Okay, this looks kind of cool. So this is a little JPEG I have that I added, I'm using as a background. So immediately the tools show up. Tayasui Sketches obviously is using the skeuomorphic approach to design where you have the actual replication of real tools that you would normally use in real life sitting there on the toolbar. You can swipe to the left to get rid of the toolbar at any time and then swipe back to the right from the margin to bring it back out. That's a pretty common feature. And you can see there are a range of tools. Some that give you a fine point starting from the top and then going down. You get more of a calligraphic line, more of a Conti crayon line. Then there are brush tools for painting and watercolor, and then airbrush for fine-tuning your strokes. There's also this option here where you can apply different patterns to shapes that you draw. And I'm going to show you all these things in a moment. There's an erase tool, and then here at the bottom is a palette tool. let me show you how all those things work. Let me just begin by just simply creating a drawing. I'm going to go ahead and choose this little felt tip marker tool, and I have black selected, and I'm just going to go ahead and draw a teapot. And it should only take a second. Maybe I'll add a little cool little spout. And I'll add a handle on this side. I'm doing this with my finger, so it's not going to be perfect. I prefer the drawing tools, by the way. There are a lot of cool brushes out there, but this is fine. Draw me a little lid. Maybe draw a little fancy little handle there. And maybe I'll go ahead and add a table as a kind of a horizon line feature. And you notice as I was drawing to the left, the toolbar automatically removed itself, which I really like that feature. Okay, so I have my teapot all set up. I can now go in and add some gradations, and I'm going to show you some of the ways in which Tayasui has fine-tuned the app. So I like this little watercolor brush tool. And the different size circles indicate the different sizes of the brush that you can use. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this size. And you can also control with the probe mode the opacity and how much of the color that you want to add. So for example, if I double tap on the brush, I get a different set of tools here. And this first option on top here allows you to control the opacity. So I'm going to take that down a bit because I do want it to be less opaque in this instance. And this of course allows you to control the size of the brush. And the top is where your color palette is. So you have multiple ways to access your colors. And I'm going to go ahead and just drag this. I want a nice subtle gray that I can use as, as a halftone for my teapot. And I'm just going to go ahead and start adding that to my teapot. So you can see it's still semi-transparent. You can still see some of the pattern coming through from underneath, but that's fine because I like that as far as the overall quality of the drawing goes. And I can go ahead and just do that throughout. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing this, just so you can get the idea of just how subtle you can be. So for example, if I wanted to go in and say add some highlights, I can move that bar over using the custom color mode or the edit color mode, and then I can go in and just add those whites into the areas where I need them. And even if you think that they're too strong, you can always go back in and adjust the opacity. So you get the idea. Pretty cool options. And you just tap on the brush tool again to go back to the main tool menu. And what's really nice is you can add, as I showed you before, these little patterns. And they're added to shape. So let's just say I wanted to add a circular mirror kind of form above the teapot. With that pattern selected, I'm actually going to change the color maybe to, I don't know, this green color, I guess. And I'm going to draw a circle just above the teapot. And as you can see, that pattern has duplicated the shape of the circle. Now I don't like that. That obviously was a bad idea. So with the undo and redo buttons turned off in the top right and bottom right, as I did in the preferences setting, I can now use my two fingers and swipe to the left to undo what I just did. I can swipe to the right to redo. Swipe to the left and undo. And that's how that works. And I like the gesture components. I'm just going to leave that on. And just to give you an idea of how the different tools actually work, I'm going to go ahead and find me some black color here. I'm going to hit the plus symbol, go to the main menu here, and I'm going to go to black. And let me just show you some tools. Well, here's the first tool. Gives you an idea how fine the lines can actually be. I mean, you can barely see that line. And here is the next pen tool. So here you get a little bit more clarity in the line. And And I'm going to swipe to undo that. And here's one that's more like a felt tip pen, where you get more of a calligraphic line, but again, the line is a lot stronger than the previous one. So as you can see, they're almost in a hierarchy of arrangements where each one gives you a stronger quality based on the medium. So this is more of a calligraphic brush, which is just so elegant. I mean, look how beautiful the lines are when you use that brush. Really nice. And this is more of a Conte crayon. And I actually used to like Conte crayon when I was in school. And this just gives you an opportunity to add a special quality to your drawing if you wanted to get that Conte crayon kind of feel. So he just adds another component to the quality of the drawing. And I have to honestly say this is my favorite tool. And I have to spend some time using it, but I'm going to go ahead and undo those with my swipe gestures. And this is a nice brush tool. Again, this is how I was applying those washes that I showed you earlier. Here's another brush tool. Let's try a different color just to kind of vary things a bit. And see, this is more like watercolor. So if I wanted to go in, and I still have it relatively opaque, so you can see the pattern is still coming through. So if I wanted this blue to be a nice background, it really works out well. As you can see, the toolbar moves right out of the way as I move to the left to fill in these areas. So as you can see, you really do have some nice ranges of options in terms of what you can do with all the different tools. Really nice. And just swipe to the left again to bring the toolbar back. And there's also the airbrush tool, which really gives you some flexibility. So if I want to go back in, for example, and say add some white, I can use the airbrush tool and just bring in some of that white. Maybe there's a central light source here, and I just want to show how the light is brighter in the center and then fades out as it goes to the periphery. So you kind of get the idea. And there is, of course, this erase tool. If you tap it twice, you will erase the entire drawing. So I'm not going to do that, but to show you how it works, here's the erase tool. I can actually just go in and just wipe that right out. Of course, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to use the 2-finger swipe to the left to undo. You can double tap on the swatch at the bottom left to bring up the edit color menu right away, if you don't want to use the one-tap option of just browsing the color swatches. Now there are also some other really nice gesture options for Tayasui Sketches. For example, you can use 2 fingers to press down onto the canvas and you can move your drawing around that way. And it also snaps right back into place, which is really nice. You also have an option to enlarge your drawing at any point by, again, just using 2 fingers and then spreading the area open. This enables you to actually go in and really fine-tune some details if that was something that you had to do, which I find to be a really nice option. There's also a new feature that came with, actually a few more. Let's go back to, say, the various different brush options. There are now brush options that enable you to control the brush mark depending on whether you go slow or fast. So for example, let's just say I choose the erase tool. There's now this oblique brush that looks like a teardrop. When that is selected, I can then erase different patterns depending on whether I go slow or fast. So if I go slow, I get this kind of erase mark. If I go fast, I get that kind of erase mark. So those are really nice options to have. Let me do my 2-finger swipe to undo those. But I love those new features. And another new feature that was added are layers. So if you swipe from the right part of the canvas, it brings up the layer menu. And if you tap on the very first layer that you're working on, you'll see that there's an option to add new paper. But if you do this, you'll be starting from scratch. And we don't want to do that, so we're going to cancel out of that. And you just tap each individual layer, and a red ribbon will appear to determine what layer you're actually on at that given moment. So let's just say I decide to work on the second layer mode. I'll swipe back to my canvas It's saved automatically. And I can go in and add something else to my project without interfering with the layer underneath. So if I wanted to go back in, for example, and add some of these patterns to my canvas, let's just say, for example, I wanted to go in and add that pattern to the background. And I wanted to choose a really nice color. What would look nice in the back there? Would it be a nice blue color? Let's try that. I'm going to try this little blue color here. I'm going to get the toolbar out of the way. And I'm just going to go ahead and just draw a rectangle that covers the back of my sketch here. And you can see it now adds this pattern to the background. Now what's nice is, because this is on another layer, I can actually go in, bring my toolbar back, get the erase tool, and I can now go in and just erase this area without interfering with the layers underneath. So if I like this option and I want to keep it, I could easily do that, which is really cool. And that's really the nice thing about having layers as an option. You can also go to or tap on a layer to bring up other options. For example, you can use a multiply mode, which tends to be more transparent. Basically everything on the canvas now becomes see-through, so you can see all the layers coming through from underneath. It's a nice option to have if you're interested. And of course you have the option to hide a layer if you want to do that. And then you also have the option to merge layers. So if I wanted to merge this layer down with the first one, I'll just hit merge down, and now that pattern is added to the first layer. So it's a little different than what you may expect. Typically when you do that, all the layers that you see before you collapse onto the one layer, say as in Photoshop Touch. It doesn't happen this way. The three layers that you see here never go away. They're your only options, at least at the moment. And this basic architecture of the three layers remains regardless of what you do. But it's still a very nice option to have. And so as you can see, you can have a lot of fun with this application. And those are some of the basic tools. And let me just share with you too the UI and how this application works. So if I want to go back to the main menu, I just pinch in and it takes me to the main menu. And from here I can actually swipe through all of my drawings this way, or swipe to start a new one. If I pinch again, I get a thumbnail view of my drawings, which is really nice. So let me go back to this menu again. Now here's what's really nice about the UI and how Tayasui Sketches has enhanced the overall user experience through these really cool UI elements. So let's say, for example, I want to delete this drawing. I don't like the way it turned out. I can swipe downwards. It brings up a menu to delete. If I want to, say, share or save this, I swipe upwards and it goes right into this simulated envelope of sorts, and it's now ready for me to do different things. I can add this to an online library if I want to. So on the left, I want to just drag this here. I could then just swipe upwards and it will add it to the online library. If I want to share the drawing to social networking sites, I do the same thing. Or if I want to email it, so just say I want to share it to Facebook and Twitter, as well as to the photo library. So I drag all three of those to the envelope and then I swipe upwards and I get the message, well done. And then ask me to access my different accounts, and boom, the drawing is now shared. Really nice options. You really can appreciate the UI of this application that many have compared to Paper by 53. I think the UI elements in this case are unique. I think there's a little bit more of the skeuomorphism evident here, only slightly, and the UI is also slightly different. If you want to compare, let me very quickly just bring up Paper. And so here's Paper's main menu. You know, if I pinch, I can browse through all of my books. Here's an option for their online library. So it's very similar, just accessing it in a different way. It's the pinch gestures. I'm pinching right now to go back and forth. So if I open up a book, tap, it goes full screen, just like Tayasui Sketches. I can swipe from the bottom to bring up the tool menu, just like Tayasui Sketches does is on the side. I can pinch again to take it back down, and then pinch again to go to the smaller thumbnail menu. It's the pinching really that I think is what makes both applications very similar. Although you have to admit, Tayasui Sketches has its own unique feel and quality, and it's a superb application, very well designed. As you can see, there's a lot that you can do with it. Try it out. It's a wonderful application. You can find it in the App Store. Initially, you can download the application for free. But then if you want the Pro mode, I believe it's only $1.99. It's really a steal. This application is so beautifully designed for $1.99. You really can't complain about it. And it's wonderful. Try it out. Anyway, this is Tim Brown. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of My Apple Podcast. You can check me out at myapplepodcast.com or at youtube.com/myapplepodcast.